My mom is very ill. She urgently needs money for surgery, but my wife took that money to buy overpriced tickets from scalpers, just to see her idol's concert. I called her in a panic, but she seemed very impatient. Money can be earned again, but my mom's illness can't be delayed any longer. However, this is the final concert. If I miss it, I won't be able to see it again. Hearing these words, my heart suddenly sank to the bottom. Fortunately, I eventually managed to gather the surgery fee. She finally returned to my side. But what she brought was a divorce agreement. He was just about to ask her where the leftover ticket money went, but the call on the other end had already been hung up. I called again. The other party had already turned off their phone. A nurse came over to remind me, "Are you Olivia's family? Have you paid the surgery fee?" The hospital requires payment to be made before scheduling the surgery. My mom's surgery has been delayed for a long time. I finally managed to save enough money, but now it's gone. Money can be figured out again, but her condition can't wait any longer. I hurriedly begged the nurse, "Please, can you help me? I will definitely gather the money as soon as possible. Can you please perform the surgery on my mom first?" The nurse emphasized once again, "No, that's the hospital's policy. You must pay first before the surgery can be done." I almost knelt down in front of the nurse. Just then, someone suddenly shouted next to the nurse, "Evan!" The nurse quickly lowered her head. She called out, "Dr. Harper." I turned my head upon hearing the voice. It turned out to be Harper, my deskmate from high school. When filling out college applications for the college entrance exam, she chose to major in medicine. I never expected to run into her here. Harper walked over and said to me, "I saw your mom's name on the patient list. I originally wanted to try my luck. I didn't expect it to be this coincidental. It really is you." She noticed my unease. She gently patted my shoulder and comforted me. "Leave the matter with your aunt to me. You don't need to worry." She turned to the nurse and said, "Quickly arrange for the surgery." The nurse seemed to have something to say. She immediately interrupted. "The money will be deducted from my personal account." It wasn't until my mom was pushed into the operating room that I realized what was happening. The nurse told me the lead surgeon for this operation was transferred from another hospital. I didn't expect it to be Harper. When she decided to study medicine, I even teased her and said she might be bald by the next time we meet. I didn't expect her to not only stay the same, but to be even more beautiful than in high school. Thinking of this, I felt a bit ashamed. This time, I really owe it all to her. I'm anxiously waiting outside the operating room. Suddenly, I received a message on my phone. It said there was a girl in a wedding dress at the concert. This incident quickly became a trending topic. As soon as I saw it, I knew, that's my wife, Sophia. The concert screen captured her exquisite makeup. It also caught her slightly stiff expression from being too excited. The idol asked her, "Are you still single?" She nodded vigorously. She grabbed the microphone and said, "I specially wore a wedding dress to see your concert today. Let's just say I'm marrying you for once." The entire venue erupted in gasps. I sneered in my heart. I turned off my phone without a second thought. How ironic. My mom is still in the hospital undergoing surgery, yet my wife is at an idol's concert in a wedding dress saying she wants to marry someone else. We've been married for 5 years. I've been telling myself not to care. Even if she talks about other men all day long, she is my wife. I believe she loves me too. She used to be obsessed with celebrities. Even if it meant spending all the money at home, I never opposed it. But now, I can no longer deceive myself. 3 hours later, Harper came out of the operating room, seeing her smiling eyes. My nervous heart finally relaxed. We were desk mates for 3 years in high school. We had a mutual understanding, as expected. The next second she took off her mask and said, "The surgery went smoothly." After another hour of observation, "You can see Auntie." I smiled sincerely. I was just about to thank her, but she raised her hand to interrupt me. "Let's wait until Auntie is discharged to say thank you. I'm really hungry right now." I smiled. I understood her meaning. "Got it. What do you want to eat? I'll go buy it. You know my appetite well. It's still the same as before." She has her shoulders slumped, walking towards the office. I commuted during high school. She lived on campus. She often asks me to bring her meals, so I know her preferences very well. I came back after buying the meal. I was just about to knock on her office door, but I was stopped by the nurse nearby. Don't disturb Dr. Harper while she's resting. She performed 2 surgeries yesterday. Today she specifically came to complete this surgery. She has already been working for over 24 hours without rest. I'm a bit surprised. I didn't expect her work to be so tough. I'm more grateful. The nurse told me she could actually refuse or postpone today's surgery. Even the dean advised her to take a break, but she insisted on coming. She said, "The patient's health is more important than her rest." I gently pushed the door open and walked in. I found her lying on the desk. She was sleeping soundly. Maybe it was because all 3 surgeries went smoothly. There was a faint smile at the corner of her mouth. Her expression was gentle, but it still revealed a hint of stubbornness. I didn't dare to disturb her. I just placed the food I bought on the table and left. The day after the surgery, I received a call from Sophia. She had just recovered from a dangerous situation. The call wasn't to check on me. Instead, she directly said, "Transfer me some money. I'm in New York right now. I have no money to go back." It's truly speechless. I'm currently tight on cash. "My mom just had surgery." "Ah," she said in surprise. "Didn't we agree to wait? What's the rush with an old lady's illness? Will waiting cost her life?" These words made me very angry. I rubbed my throbbing temple. I asked her, "You took away 100,000 yuan. Now you're still asking me for money." "It's all spent." She mentioned it. "Just buying the wedding dress cost me several tens of thousands." As she spoke, it seemed she suddenly realized she shouldn't have told me this. The voice grew quieter. I answered directly. I already knew. She didn't say much more. She asked directly, "Then how am I supposed to go back without money?" I let out a cold laugh. "That's just perfect. Never come back again." After saying that, I immediately hung up the phone. I casually added her number to the blacklist, just like she had done to me multiple times before. But this time is different. It's my decision to cut off all contact with her. In the past, I always tolerated and forgave her, but she didn't cherish or understand that. Instead, she increasingly insulted and hurt me. My mom said she shouldn't spend 100,000 on a used water cup from an idol. She spoke to me harshly. It lasted for 3 whole years. Even the doctor said my mother's illness was caused by stress, but she forgot. It was her mother who knelt down, begging my mother to agree to the marriage. If my mother hadn't considered their decades of friendship and couldn't bear to let her mother leave with regrets, I would absolutely not have married her. But who could have imagined that one moment of weakness would lead to such consequences? I hired a lawyer to prepare the divorce agreement. I just wanted to end this relationship quickly. After my mother was transferred to a regular ward, I hired a caregiver to take care of her, while I started running back and forth between the company and the hospital. I needed to make money quickly, to pay off the debts as soon as possible. My body isn't made of iron either. After several consecutive days, I looked completely exhausted. Harper returned to the original hospital after the surgery. I didn't expect she would come to see me. She brought a basket of fruit. She could tell at a glance that I wasn't in good shape. She asked, "Why do you have such obvious dark circles under your eyes?" "I haven't been sleeping well lately." I smiled helplessly. I nodded slightly. I took off my glasses. I rubbed my sore eyes. She immediately understood. She said half-jokingly, "The money issue isn't urgent. Anyway, you can't run away. I'm not worried about you not paying me back." She looked around the hospital room. She asked with some confusion, "I heard long ago that you got married. How come I haven't seen you?" "I'm in the process of contacting a lawyer. I'm preparing for a divorce," I said briefly. She looked a bit surprised, but she still nodded. Suddenly, she asked again, "Have you eaten yet? You used to buy me meals. Today I'm treating you. What do you want to eat? I'll go buy it for you." I looked at her smiling face, feeling a bit lost in thought. Such talk of return gifts. Sophia has never said that. It's been 5 years since we got married. Even if she doesn't work, she never cooks either. Either she waits for me to come home to cook, or she orders takeout. I've always taken care of all the household chores. She always takes my kindness for granted, yet she never shows gratitude. Every time I can't meet her expenses for chasing stars, she gets furious with me. She says I'm incompetent, accuses me of being petty and stingy. She belittles me to nothing. It turns out I also deserve kindness from others. Harper bought 7 or 8 dishes at once. She said it was because she didn't know what I liked to eat, so she bought a bit more. I smiled slightly. Actually, I'm not picky at all. In the past, I always cooked according to Sophia's taste. What I liked to eat was never considered. Harper, listen to me. She immediately interrupted me unhappily. How is not important? Eating is a big deal in life. It's very important. Her words made me unable to help but laugh. We chatted while eating. It felt like a noon back in high school. At that time, I always said she couldn't stop talking while eating. Later, we got married. But every time we eat, Sophia is always on her phone. She doesn't talk to me at all. I also tried to chat with her, but she either ignores me or just gives a few casual replies. At that moment, I finally understood. Having someone cling to me for conversation was actually a very happy thing. At least you could still talk to each other. The meal wasn't finished yet. Suddenly, the door to the ward was kicked open violently. Sophia's already angry face grew even angrier upon seeing us. She widened her eyes. She rushed over, ready to hit Harper. She scolded loudly. "No wonder you didn't answer my calls. So you were here dining with someone else." I quickly pulled Harper behind me. "Say it. What are you talking about?" "Harper is the attending physician for my mom's surgery." Slap. As soon as the words were out, she slapped me hard. Pointing at my nose, she said, "Doctor, you actually lied to me saying you were a doctor. You really think I'm that easy to deceive? What kind of doctor wouldn't wear a white coat?" I didn't want to say anything more to her. I just wanted to quickly take Harper away. She suddenly rushed over to block me. She even seemed ready to throw a punch. She was still wearing the wedding dress from a few days ago. Her makeup was also smudged. Standing in front of me now, she looked nothing like a normal person. She raised her hand to hit. I helplessly turned my head, waiting to be hit, but there was no pain on my face. I opened my eyes. I saw that Harper had blocked the slap for me. She grabbed the person's arm and said, "I didn't know what was happening, but I am the lead surgeon for this operation. And no matter what, hitting someone is always wrong." It seems reasoning with her is useless. She started crying and shouting again. I heard Mom was going to have surgery. I couldn't even afford a plane ticket. I hurried back after taking a decades-old green train for several hours. I rushed to the hospital without even changing my clothes. I didn't expect you not only to be ungrateful, but to blame me instead. Her ability to distort the facts is still so strong. While she was sitting on the ground crying, I quickly pulled Harper away. The nurse came and escorted her out of the ward. I walked Harper out of the hospital. Apologetically, I said, "Sorry for letting you witness this." She shook her head. Instead, I apologized to her. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have interfered in your family matters." Then she said again, "But I just couldn't stand her hitting you." A few simple words, yet they touched my heart deeply. Actually, the most frightening thing for a person is not being wronged, but the sudden concern received after being wronged. I quickly turned around, waved my hand and said to her, "Go home now. Thank you for coming to see me today." After returning to the ward, the nurse's words calmed Sophia down. As soon as I walked in, she pretended to care and walked over. "Is your face okay? I didn't mean to hit you just now. I just got anxious when I saw you with another woman." In a moment of panic, I ignored her and went straight to the drawer to take out the prepared divorce agreement. I said to her, "Sign here." When she saw the words of the divorce agreement, she widened her eyes in surprise. She asked in confusion, "I have already apologized to you. Are you still going to divorce me for that woman? It has come to this." She still didn't understand what she did wrong. "The reason for my divorce is not because of her, but because of you." She fell silent. Her eyes were filled with confusion and bewilderment. I listed her faults one by one. "You used the money that should have been for saving my mom to buy scalp tickets to a concert at the critical moment when my mom was having surgery. You wore a wedding dress and said you wanted to marry someone else. Because of you, my mom had just had surgery. You immediately came to ask me for money." After I finished speaking loudly, she remained silent for a long time, then suddenly began to cry. "Just because of this, you actually want to divorce me? "You heartless person." She cried uncontrollably. "It's as if I've suffered a great injustice. Isn't it just a surgery? It's not like she's really going to die. Even if something happens, it's her life. Just an old lady. If she's gone, she's gone. What does that have to do with me? You actually want to divorce me for her." I'm so angry I could laugh. My mom is still lying there. She actually says such things here. I want to kick her out of the hospital room. She suddenly stands up and says firmly, "Divorce is divorce. You heartless person. Don't regret it and come begging me later." I find this absolutely ridiculous. Right now, all I can think about is divorcing her as soon as possible. How could I possibly ask her to reconcile again? 1 month later, my mom's illness is completely cured. I pick her up from the hospital. I happen to run into Harper at the hospital. She's here on business. When my mom learns that Harper is the lead surgeon, she kept urging me to go to her house to thank her. This time I happened to run into her. My mom held her hand tightly and wouldn't let go. This time, I really have to thank Zio Ning. My mom was holding her hand and said with great gratitude. Harper waved her hand and said, "It's really thanks to you for having such a thoughtful son. I noticed he hasn't been resting well these past few days. If he sleeps in after you go back, please don't blame him." She was as charming as ever when she spoke. A few words made both my mom and me happy. In the end, they chatted for more than half an hour, before reluctantly parting ways. Before leaving, they urged us to quickly exchange contact information. Actually, we used to have each other's contact information, but after graduating from high school, Harper changed her number, and we lost contact like that. In the car, my mom asked me, "How's the divorce process going?" After this incident, my mom finally sees Sophia's true colors. She won't be persuading me to forgive her like before. Some people are simply not worth forgiving. Her things have already been moved out of the house. Now I'm just waiting for her to sign the divorce papers. She doesn't answer when I call her. She doesn't reply to my texts either. The divorce agreement has been delayed and still hasn't been signed. Now I have to go find her in person to get her signature. After settling my mom down, I drove to Sophia's house. Not long after getting married, she bought a house with the betrothal gift I gave her and the dowry her mom left her. But she never told me about this until we settled the community property this time. That's when I found out about it. After I found the address, I pressed the doorbell. Not long after, the door opened from the inside. Seeing that it was me, Sophia's eyes immediately flashed with excitement, but she quickly put on a stern face. She crossed her arms, speaking from a position of superiority, finally realizing to come back and ask me, "Let me tell you, me, the words aren't finished yet." I handed the divorce agreement back to her. "Sign it." I didn't want to say anything more to her. She was surprised by my cold reaction. She silently stared at me for a while, then suddenly snatched the divorce agreement from my hand and forcefully tore it into pieces. "What exactly do you want?" I finally couldn't hold back my anger. She hurriedly ran into the house. In no time, she came out with a pregnancy test. The pregnancy test clearly showed 2 lines. This means she is pregnant. Seeing my surprised expression, she immediately regained her usual confident demeanor, as if she had won a battle. She said straightforwardly, "Yes, I'm pregnant. You're going to be a dad. I don't quite understand. We've been married for 5 years. Actually, I've always wanted a child." But she always used reasons like being unhealthy or too young to avoid it. Every time we were together, she would also take strict safety measures. How could she suddenly be pregnant now? I suddenly realized we haven't had a sexual relationship for nearly 6 months. How could she possibly be pregnant now? Whose child is this? My expression immediately darkened. She looked surprised. "What do you mean by that? I'm pregnant. The child is obviously yours. Otherwise, whose could it be?" I asked her. 6 months ago, you were so sad and upset when you heard your favorite celebrity was retiring from the entertainment industry. You didn't want to share a room with me. How could this child possibly be mine?" She shouted at me excitedly. "Even if you're not the biological father of the child, does that mean the child isn't yours? You are my husband. I am pregnant. The child may not call you dad, but do you have no responsibility for raising them?" She thinks, because I am her husband, One should unconditionally accept everything about her, even when the child is not mine. I also have to silently accept it. Raise her and other people's children. I say resolutely, this marriage must end. I didn't talk to her much anymore. I left without looking back. I contacted the lawyer. Decide to divorce through legal means. The lawyer told me, because of her behavior, even if she doesn't sign, this marriage can also be divorced. After returning home, I didn't dare to tell my mom that Sophia was pregnant with someone else's child. She just got discharged from the hospital, cannot withstand such a blow. I have handed over all matters to the lawyer. Focus on your own work. Fortunately, the work is progressing smoothly. I quickly saved enough for my mother's surgery. As soon as my salary arrived, I immediately thought of Harper, back when I was in the hospital. She helped me get through that tough time. I transferred the money to her. I texted her again to say thank you. It wasn't long before she replied to me. She helped Evan with such a big favor. Just a simple thank you seemed too dismissive. I thought about it. I felt that was indeed a bit excessive, so I replied to her. She answered immediately, "You owe me a meal." I smiled. "Okay, you pick the time." I had just sent the message when a strange number called in. It was Evan. "Where's your salary? Didn't you just get paid today? Why is there still no money in your account?" It was Sophia. I didn't expect her to remember my salary. Seeing that I didn't respond, she continued speaking to herself. "I don't even have money for the prenatal checkup now. Do you know whose child I'm carrying? It's your fortune if I let you raise it. You can't even take out money for the prenatal checkup. What if something goes wrong? Can you bear the responsibility?" After hearing all this, I found it quite funny. Whose child it is has nothing to do with me. I don't have to take responsibility for it either. I didn't answer her directly. I just reminded her, "You should have received the court notice by now. Remember to show up on time." I quickly hung up the phone. I immediately went to the bank to change the password for my salary card, so that if any problems arise, they won't be delayed. I secretly felt relieved. I immediately used my recently received salary to pay off debts. As the court date approached, I felt more motivated to work. I never expected to see Sophia at the company entrance one day. She was shouting loudly with a megaphone downstairs. There was a banner she prepared hanging on the tree nearby. She directly accused me of being unfaithful, abandoned her and the child. A lot of people have already gathered around, listening to her talk to herself over there, fabricating stories about how I bullied her and heartlessly abandoned her. I was so angry I gritted my teeth. I really didn't expect her to be so shameless. Seeing me come down, she became even more justified in her claims. He even pulled out the records of the money I transferred to others, saying that I spent all my salary on someone else, ignoring her and the child. He thought I didn't want her and the child for someone else's sake. But that money was actually the life-saving money I owed Harper. She secretly took a photo of me having dinner with Harper, then deliberately let the people around misunderstand my relationship with Harper. She even called Harper a person who shouldn't be seen in public. I immediately snatched the megaphone from her, threw all the banners hanging up into the trash can. She shouted angrily, but in the end, she was still taken away from the company building. Seeing that no one around was supporting her anymore, her attitude softened. "Start begging me. Hubby, forgive me. I promise to make the baby in my belly call you Dad. As long as you are willing, we can become a happy family of 3. Her behavior and these words make me feel very uncomfortable. I really couldn't hold it in anymore. Yell at her, "Enough. What do you want exactly?" She started crying again, as if she were the one hurt in this relationship. I don't want to waste more breath on her. I simply said, "Remember to come to court tomorrow." Then I turned and left. This matter led my boss to talk to me. The promotion and raise that were supposed to be mine are gone. But thinking that after tomorrow, I can divorce smoothly, I can finally be free. The court process went smoothly. It was just that Sophia kept crying. My mom felt a bit soft-hearted when she saw it. She said it seemed like Sophia realized she was wrong. If only her mother could see this scene from above. She must be very anxious. I shook my head and said, "She doesn't really realize her mistakes. She just thought about how no one would cook for her after the divorce, taking care of her and the child. so it's inevitable that she feels sad. At the moment the judge announced the divorce, Sophia cried even harder in the courtroom. She suddenly lost control and shouted, asking what she and the child should do. My mom and I exchanged a glance. My mom shook her head helplessly, and I let out a cold laugh. That's right. How could someone as selfish and arrogant as her possibly realize she was wrong? On the day we received the divorce certificate, I saw Sophia for the last time. Her belly was obviously bigger, but she looked even thinner. She seemed very haggard. We were married for 5 years. But seeing her like this, I felt not a single ripple in my heart, no sorrow at all. There is no regret. It's like seeing a stranger. She wanted to grab my hand. I avoided it in the end. She said in a hoarse voice, I'm sorry, but I must give birth to this child. Whether she wants this child or not has nothing to do with me. We're getting a divorce. It's not entirely because of the child. I shook my head. I walked past her. I heard her calling from behind, wait for me. After I give birth, I'll come find you. At first, I didn't quite understand her meaning, but 2 months later I understood completely. After the first day of work ended, I received a call from Harper. She told me Sophia was in the hospital and had severe bleeding. The child couldn't be saved. She wants to see me. I originally didn't plan to go, but thinking about how she has no family left in this world, out of sympathy, I decided to go to the hospital to see her. How is she doing now? I saw Harper at the hospital. I asked her about her condition. Harper had a complicated expression. She said she was no longer in life-threatening danger, but I continued to ask her what happened. Only then did she tell me her child was forcibly aborted to save her life. The doctors had to remove her uterus. She will never be able to get pregnant again. I also didn't expect it to be like this. What is going on? Harper shook her head, indicating that she was unclear about what specifically happened. She said, we can only know the truth when that person wakes up. Only then will we know the truth. When Sophia woke up, I was resting on my bed at home. I saw that she was out of danger. I hired a caregiver to take care of her. Then I left. After Harper learned that the child had nothing to do with me, she apologized to me. She previously thought the child was mine. That's why she called me. I still thanked her, thanking her for thinking of me. I haven't received any news about Sophia from the hospital. Life gradually returned to normal. Sophia's idol, whom she liked for 10 years, suddenly got into trouble. The idol was confirmed to have had relations with a fan, which led to the fan getting pregnant, and even instructed other fans to force her to have an abortion. When I saw this news, I suddenly realized whose child Sophia was carrying. I also understood why she was forcibly made to have an abortion. She originally sought out that idol because she couldn't afford to raise the baby. As a result, she not only didn't get any acknowledgement, but was instead forced to have an abortion. The only wise thing she did was to record everything on her phone. And after her injury healed, she contacted the media to expose him. So when I saw Sophia again, I wasn't surprised. After all, the only person she can turn to now is me. Evan, the child I had with him, is gone. I can no longer get pregnant. Now you can forgive me, right? She remains so innocent. She still thinks I don't forgive her because she's pregnant with someone else's child. Actually, it was my mother's idea to get married back then. Now, looking back at these 5 years, I only have familial feelings for her. I have never truly loved her. Now, I feel some sympathy for her situation, but all of this is her own doing. Let me be straightforward. In fact, I never loved you. I used to treat you well and tolerate you. It was only because you were my wife. But now, we no longer have any relationship. There's no question of forgiveness or not. She shook her head. She doesn't believe what I'm saying. Impossible. You were so good to me. How could you not love me? You must still think it's because I'm pregnant with someone else's child. That's why you won't forgive me, right? I gave a bitter smile. It turns out she always knew about my kindness to her. But why does she still treat me this way? She grabbed my hand. She explained. Actually, I had no physical contact with my idol at all. I just secretly entered his room. I found a used condom of his. And then, I got pregnant. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She actually did something to hurt herself just to have her idol's child. She even thought to use this to make me forgive her. I shook off her hand. I said directly, How did you get pregnant? It has nothing to do with me. I don't love you. I didn't love you before. I won't love you in the future either. Do you understand? She realized she couldn't convince me. She shouted emotionally. Then who do you like? Is it that person in the hospital? I didn't want to argue with her anymore. I don't want to argue with her anymore. Does it have nothing to do with you anymore? From now on, we're even. After she left, Harper called me. Did your ex-wife come to find you? I replied. Suddenly, I remembered something, so I asked. She didn't cause you any trouble while she was in the hospital, did she? She answered. No, she just had some emotional fluctuations. She has been under quite a bit of stress lately. I'm worried she can't handle it. You should pay more attention to her emotions. Don't make her angry. I understand. She's worried she might do something foolish, but she is the type who would rather betray everyone than let anyone hurt me. How could she possibly harm herself over such a trivial matter? I suddenly thought of something, so I asked, where are you right now? Me? Harper smiled and said, of course, I'm at the hospital. I hadn't even had a chance to speak. I heard a gasp from the other end of the phone. Dr. Harper. Be careful. The scene looked chaotic. My heart raced as if it would jump out of my chest. Hello, hello. The call suddenly dropped. All I heard was a beeping sound. It must have been dropped and turned off. I hurriedly drove to Harper's hospital. When I arrived at her office, I found blood all over the floor. A young nurse ran over to tell me, Mr. Evan, your ex-wife injured Dr. Harper with a knife. She has already been taken away by the police. I didn't even have the mind to care about what she said about my ex-wife. My mind was filled with worries about Harper. She is still so young. I can't let anything happen to her because of me this time. I anxiously grabbed the nurse and asked urgently, where is Dr. Harper? Where is she now? The nurse replied, in the rescue room. I hurried to the emergency room. A nurse happened to come out and said, Dr. Harper has lost too much blood. She needs a blood transfusion. Please gather people with type of blood in the hospital to donate. I'm type of blood. Use mine right now. I'm especially glad that my blood type is the same as Harper's. If anything happens to her, I could never forgive myself. It's all because of me that she got involved. After I insisted on donating 400 cc of blood, Harper finally came out of danger. She was transferred to a regular ward to rest. I sat by the bed, waiting for her to wake up. I received a call from the police. They asked me to go to the station, but I didn't go. Now I have no connection with that woman. Even if I have to show up, I would only do so with Harper. I looked at the weak person on the bed with pale lips. I felt very regretful inside. If I had discovered something was wrong earlier, she wouldn't have gotten into trouble. Now she wouldn't be lying here. In the middle of the night, Harper woke up, seeing me sitting by her hospital bed. She asked in surprise, "What are you doing here?" Her voice was a bit hoarse as she started to speak. I quickly poured her a glass of water. I apologized to her. "I'm sorry. If it weren't for me, you wouldn't have." I hadn't finished speaking. She shook her head and said, "This is not your fault. You don't need to be responsible for others' actions." She told me seriously, "It's Sophia's fault. You don't need to apologize to me. I'm her attending physician." I had noticed her emotional instability before, but I didn't take it seriously, to be honest. I also have a responsibility. After saying that, she reminded me again, "It's getting late. You should go back and rest early." Look, she still has the energy to argue with me. I nodded reassuringly. I left as she said. My current situation really isn't suitable for staying by her side. Sophia was ultimately diagnosed with schizophrenia. She needed to be sent to a psychiatric hospital for treatment. She insisted on seeing me one last time, begging for my forgiveness. But I still chose to refuse. Meeting wouldn't solve the problem. It wouldn't change the facts either. In fact, Harper is the one who deserves an apology. She did nothing wrong, yet she was hurt for no reason. The wound is quite deep. It will definitely leave a scar in the future. I followed my mom's advice. I often went to the hospital to bring her chicken soup for nourishment. The nurses and doctors at the hospital joked that we were quite a match. They might as well just get together. I always refused with a straight face. I felt that such jokes shouldn't be taken lightly. I can't damage that girl's reputation. Go on. I've been divorced. How could I possibly be worthy of a young and beautiful girl like her? Once again, I'm explaining to the nurse the reasons why we can't be together. Suddenly, someone interjects. It's just because you've been divorced. I recognized Harper's voice immediately. I was taken aback. I quickly asked, when did you arrive? If there were a mirror, my face would definitely be as red as a monkey's bottom right now. Harper didn't answer me. She just said, it's just that I'm younger. If I remember correctly, we should be high school classmates or desk mates. Seeing that I hadn't said anything, she walked over. She took the chicken soup from my hands. Then she said, forget it. Your brain works slowly. Some things are better taken slowly. She carried the chicken soup into the office. Looking at her small yet upright figure, for the first time I felt a bit more at ease. Yeah, some things still need to be taken step by step. Give me the opportunity to show. Also give her space to reconsider between us. There is still a lot of time.